All right. Well, host one.
Host one. Okay, cool. Are you ready?
I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay, amazing. Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Cellar Road Podcast. My name is Anna.
And I'm Adam.
And today we are going to be exploring why collect wine. Like, why would somebody want to spend all the money, time, and energy into taking a wine through years and years and years of aging?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And for many people, that's a very personal question. You know, from my wife and I, we started collecting wine after we got married. It was just something that we both really enjoyed wine. And so it was just something that we kind of decided we wanted to enjoy together in a special way. And we've been collecting wine since. And that's a lot of fun. And so, you know, everybody has their own motivations for collecting wine. And we want to honor that while also kind of providing some practical reasons why it's a good idea, and can be both a lot of fun but also extremely rewarding.
Oh yeah, it can be so incredibly rewarding opening a bottle that you bought and then took and aged for years and then just was able to enjoy. There's almost no other experience like that.
There's nothing like bringing a wine to peak and then enjoying it with friends.
Correct.
Speaking of a wine that is a reward, we are having one of those today.
I'm so excited about this.
Anna, tell us about this wine.
Oh my gosh. So the wine we're going to be sharing and enjoying and drinking throughout this entire episode. Hopefully remember to continue having the conversation while we're drinking this.
I mean, could go off the rails, who knows?
Is the Domaine Gros, Clos de Vougeot, Le Grand Maupertui. So Gros is a third generation winemaker in Burgundy. She took over the family estate in the 80s, to which she also changed the name and named it Domaine Gros, which I applaud her for naming it after herself. And Domaine Gros is known for making incredibly elegant and sophisticated wines. She is super minimalistic with her approach to winemaking to truly let the terroir and the expression of where the wines are coming from in Burgundy truly shine. Yeah.
So Burgundy, obviously one of the most, influential, important, expensive wine regions in the world. This is not a cheap bottle of wine.
No.
And that's just Burgundy. And then you dive even, you get even more exclusive when you start talking about the Clos. And so this wine comes from the Clos de Vougeot. To remind everyone, Clos is a vineyard that has been walled off. And so these are vineyards surrounded by stone or brick walls. Mm-hmm. And so Clos de Vougeot is one of those. It's about 120 acres.
It's the largest Clos in Burgundy.
Did not know that. So we're all learning today.
Yeah.
Owned by there are 80 owners in that 120 acres. So, there are families that own that together. There are, maybe 6 families that own one row. Or there are, 2 rows that are owned by one house, right? Yeah. And so Gros has some of the rows that come from the Clos de Vougeot.
Yeah.
Within Burgundy, there are these tiny, kind of sub-terroir, right? There's these little sub-climates and smaller areas that produce wines that maybe do have a little bit of variation.
Yes.
And so because Clos de Vougeot is so big.
It ranges.
Variance.
Like huge variance. Like super far to the north, you have really limestone-rich, well-draining soils. And the further south we go, we start to develop clay, which if you've ever had to walk through clay, it's not well draining at all.
Right.
And so specifically here where we're at, we are in limestone rich.
Great.
We're in a limestone rich part of it. So we've got incredibly well draining soil.
Right. And so right next to the Clos de Vougeot is Kietzerow.
Yes.
And so for those who are familiar with Burgundy, you know that Kietzerow, the Teche, and the Romanée-Conti are the 3 kind of major, most expensive, most exclusive.
Yes.
So what we're getting here is similar to Kietzerow, without the price tag. So Correct. It is still expensive. It's a couple $100s,
yes.
but it's not $6 or $9 or 3,000 or
Yes.
6,000 or 10,000.
Or 20,000.
Or 20.
Yeah.
So, this wine, you're going to get to experience that elegance of really rocky soiled Burgundies
Yeah.
without having to shell out tuition for a
Yes,
child
yes.
on a bottle of wine. So we're really in a great place. So so why did we pull this wine specifically for this episode? Because we wanted to talk about why you collect wine, and this is such a fun wine to drink.
Yeah.
This is one of those wines that makes collecting fun.
Yeah. When Adam and I were sitting down to plan out the podcast and thinking about what wine we would drink with each episode that we had planned, we were like immediately like, should we not?
We
And
really
were like,
should.
Yeah, I was like, we really should. Because when talking about collecting wine, one of the big reasons why, I collect wine and you collect wine, Adam, is the stories behind the wine. And when we're talking about stories in wine, Burgundy is full of them.
Yeah.
Like Burgundy is full of them. Like Burgundy, you can study Burgundy and almost completely learn the entire history of France.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. There are Burgundy and Champagne, those two regions.
Yeah.
You study them together because they're neighbors.
Yes.
You will know
Yeah.
not only the whole history of France, the history of industrialization in Europe,
Yep.
the history of global commerce,
Yes.
all of those things, basically all of society, our entire anthropological history
Yeah.
can connect
Yeah.
to the production of wine in those two regions of the world.
Correct.
I'm getting goosebumps. That's really interesting to think about.
Yeah.
And so being able to tell those stories
Yeah.
is really fun.
Yeah.
So before we jump into the
Let's briefly introduce ourselves to this wine.
it's not going to sit in my glass long, so we need to start talking.
We might drink a glass or two over the course of the episode.
That's true.
Always drink responsibly, but Oh my god. Oh my god.
It's beautiful.
As much as I shit on Pinot Noir, it's Pinot Noirs like this that will always keep Pinot Noir in my repertoire of wines and grapes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my god, this is incredible.
Yeah. I'm not, we're sitting here drinking probably one of the best bottles of Burgundy you can have.
Yeah.
Neither of us are big Pinot Noir fans. Like neither of us are big still red Pinot Noir fans.
Yes, correct.
We love a Pinot Noir and a Champagne though.
Blanc de Noirs.
Blanc de Noir, come on. But this is exceptional.
Oh my god. This is it's so elegant.
Is fabulous. So
it feels like
we can stop using adjectives and start actually describing talking about what we're smelling and tasting. So on the nose,
it's cherry blossoms and violets and cherries and red fruit.
Absolutely. But it's also that, it's got that beautiful kind of stemminess that you expect from a Burgundian Pinot.
Correct.
Right? This is not New World Pinot.
No.
New World Pinot, cherry cola, like very fruit forward.
It's not super extracted.
No.
It is.
This speaks to the fact that this is a plant. Like, you're drinking something that had a stem on it.
Yeah.
And had leaves, and you can taste that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Also, just so quintessential Gros style of just like being elegant and sophisticated, and not being like so direct in your face. It's so incredibly subtle with how the wine wants you to approach it.
Yeah. It's
so inviting.
Because it's so minimal on its approach, you can... I can't imagine how difficult it is to strike the balance between elegance and minimal intervention.
Yeah.
Somehow they do it, because this is elegant beyond elegance.
Yeah.
But it is wild in a way. Like there's a wilderness in this glass.
Yeah.
And I love that. It is fabulous wine.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good.
What were we talking about?
I know. I'm just thinking, like, we still have to
Do we just want to do a whole episode on this
this
bottle
one
of wine?
bottle, just using all the adjectives in the dictionary to describe it. No, but we should. Oh, I know.
Okay.
I know. We should still talk about why we want to collect wine.
Yeah.
And maybe pour another glass or two as we do it.
I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about why you want to collect wine, and let's address the elephant in the room that, especially recently, I think the last 15 years, wine has come to be seen as a true just kind of commodity investment.
Yeah.
It's bought and sold to appreciate and gain wealth or be an alternative investment tool.
Yeah.
That is not what we're talking about today.
No.
We have absolutely no interest in that.
Yeah.
If you do that, good for you.
Yes.
We're going to talk more about why you collect wine from a personal and emotional perspective.
Yeah.
And we're kind of talking about it now, right? Like Burgundy is full of stories. Every bottle of wine in our collection at home,
Yes.
there's a story behind that wine.
Yep.
And so that's my story, right? But the story we have is the story of how we came to find that wine, why we love it, what we were doing when we discovered it, maybe what we were doing when we bought that bottle.
Yeah.
But that's one story. The other story is the other side of the industry, is how that wine came to be produced.
Yeah.
Who farmed those grapes?
Yes.
Who made that wine?
Correct.
The family that owns the vineyard.
Yep.
And those are really fun stories to learn as well. And
Yeah.
if you collect, you're able to, especially if you collect, from a couple producers, but you collect a lot of their bottles, you're going to learn more about that family story, and that's really fun.
Yeah. And then thinking about it is that ultimately collecting wine comes down to the story you want to have with wine. When you come into your wine collection and when you're thinking about your wine collection, it should be unmistakably you.
Yeah.
You're going to come look at all the wines that I have collected, and you're going to be like, oh, this is clearly Anna. This is clearly Anna. Every time
Lots of long bottles.
Yeah, lots of tall bottles.
Yes.
Lots of tall bottles,
Yes.
the Hoch bottles. And then some like Northern Rhones and quintessential cool climate places.
Yeah.
Just reflecting what I truly love and what I truly enjoy. Whereas I go to yours and I'm going to see a lot of champagne.
Yeah.
A lot of champagne. But I'm also
Yes.
going to see some big shouldered reds.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
You are going to see some reds that will absolutely melt your face off.
Yeah.
If
Love
you do
that
not
for
let
you.
them sit.
Yeah.
You're going to find Tannat and
Uh-huh.
California Cab and some big bad boys. But yeah, you're also going to find some really delicious champagnes.
Yeah. And this is, I think a lot of it has to do with, at least for me, a lot of the bottles that I have in there are all somehow related to like a specific moment in time that I have in relationship to wine.
Right.
So, talking about my wines from Germany, that's where I truly got my interest in wine, is thinking about like the Mosel Valley and like going over there as somebody who couldn't drink beer and just fell into the wine culture and then truly came to appreciate it. And then the winery where I got my start at in Michigan, which is the thing that got me addicted to high acid, cool climate wines. And then moving on from there, growing to love champagne, growing to love France, I think broadly, but specifically the Northern Rhone, which Northern Rhone Syrah is directly connected to my time in Michigan, which also grows cool climate Syrah, and being like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why would anybody else drink any other red wine?
Right.
Well, this is an example of this wine. The Gros here is an example of why I would drink wine outside of that.
Yeah.
But like what wines from those places do is that they're so deeply connected to my own personal narrative that they're just in some ways looking in a mirror at myself.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful thing to have, right?
Yeah.
I think about the champagnes that we have from my wife and I's first trip to Champagne. It was our first. My wife was working abroad. I was joining her at the end of a business trip, and then that was our first international vacation together. And so it was like a really important and fun moment for us. It was the end of COVID. COVID had just ended. So, we had been cooped up. We got married, we had a year, and then we got cooped up for, 2.5. So it was really exciting. And we just grew. We knew we loved the wine. We got there and we fell in love with Champagne and the people of Champagne and the story of Champagne.
Yep.
And so like looking at some of those bottles I just like to look at them, right? I like to look at them and be nostalgic about the little grower producer bottles that we have from the grower producer we stayed at in Epernay. We stayed at their chateau.
Yeah.
And I love to just look at those bottles because it reminds me of that time. So, why to collect wine? That's why you collect wine.
Yeah.
You get to revisit these special moments in your life and share them with others.
Yeah. That's also then thinking about, talking about regions, but then there's also like certain vintages that I'm also incredibly interested in, just because something really special happened that year. And each bottle is like a snapshot of that year. At least vintage bottles are.
Yep.
Are a snapshot of that single year in that single place and that
Yep.
single moment in time.
Yep.
And so when you are drinking a bottle of wine, it is in some ways it's drinking a snapshot of that year. You get to go back and revisit that single moment in time and reflect on it because wine is just liquid history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the top 5 vintages in the 20th century for Champagne was 1990, which is the year that I was born. And so when we were in Champagne, we were at Veuve Clicquot. We mentioned that the tour of Veuve Clicquot was my gift, my birthday gift.
Yeah.
And they asked what year I was born, and they pulled out a 1990 rosé. And
Amazing.
it was exceptional.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an exceptional wine and such a cool moment to drink. They opened a magnum of 1990 rosé for me, and to drink 1990 Veuve Clicquot rosé in the garden at Veuve Clicquot in celebration of my birthday was just such a fun and cool moment.
Oh,
and, I mean, it's something I will literally never forget that.
Yeah.
And I will say that wine is aged beautifully. It is continuing to age beautifully. I just had 1990 Veuve Clicquot rosé in Champagne last year.
Yes.
It's yummy.
It is very
It's
yummy.
aging beautifully like me.
So beautiful.
Yes, I am. It is too. It's fun to find those moments and think about like, okay, when I was born.
Yeah.
When I was being created,
Yeah.
this wine was being created alongside of me.
Yeah, and I think especially knowing that it is then a vintage rosé champagne from Veuve Clicquot just makes it so much cooler.
Yeah.
Especially once you understand the history of Veuve Clicquot and Widow Clicquot, and like thinking like it's a vintage champagne, but it's not only a vintage champagne.
Right.
It's a rosé.
Yeah.
From her.
From her.
Yeah.
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 The depth of that is fun.
Yeah, the depth of that is
and it's
so
like,
cool.
learning about that and being able to say that and then know everything that goes into that sentence or into that description is fun. Thanks.
Take some more.
I'm going to. Great. Kind of speaking to other reasons to think about collecting wine, for those who value art and culture and enjoy experiencing those things, wine is an expression of place. It's the same as flamenco dancing in Spain, or it's the same as the opera houses in Vienna. Like it is a similar type of artistic expression and experience to drink good wines from those places.
Yeah. I like to think of wine kind of along the lines of cultural food.
Yeah.
Because those foods have come to represent the very places they come from, just because, that was the food that was available to these people when they were in the process of making and creating these recipes.
Right.
Well, guess what? In a lot of these places, especially in the old world, the grapes that were there were the grapes that they had to make these wines, and then suddenly like histories and traditions and cultures and techniques and processes all went into making these wines. So Yeah, we're drinking a Burgundy here, and like Pinot Noir is also grown a lot in Oregon, in Willamette. But the way they make the wine there is different. They don't have the history and tradition that Burgundy does. Don't get me wrong, Oregon and Willamette in particular have a rich, rich history in wine, and it's incredibly important and really cool to explore, especially in the history of like American wine.
Yeah.
But knowing that we're drinking a Clos de Vougeot wine here is so cool, because suddenly, like, you know, the monks in I think like the 14th century, maybe the 12th century, one of those centuries,
A while ago,
very long time ago,
Yeah.
Went out and like built the Clos.
Right.
Yeah, and fenced in these vineyard sites,
Yeah.
and then dedicated the time to making and growing these grapes.
Right.
And they've been doing it in this very specific spot
Right.
since then.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like touching what Burgundy, in this specific area of Burgundy in the Côte de Nuit, has been doing for literal centuries.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, you know, you're seeing us get really animated about talking about this wine, talking about the other wines that are in our collections, but, you know, maybe we're leading by example on why it's why it is a joy to collect wine.
Yeah.
And why it's fun. You learn so much.
Yeah.
And most importantly, you're able to share it with friends and family. Like, that's the fun part, is like being able to open a bottle and have a little bit of the history and have a little bit of the story to tell.
Yeah.
Because you've spent the time you've chosen to collect the wine.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and there's nothing wrong with collecting massive amounts of wine and having 10,000 bottle wine cellars. Please, that is so fun. I think if we could do that, we would. If I won the lottery, 100%. I would also have a 20,000 bottle wine cellar. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yet. So I don't.
Yet being
right?
the keyword.
But like yet.
Yet.
Coming for you, Powerball. But, you know, I think it's okay to have those big collections.
Yeah.
But even the collectors that have 20,000 wines can go into that cellar and pull out a bottle and get so excited to tell you the story of the reason they have that bottle of wine.
Yeah. Yes.
So every collector at every level, 12 bottles to 10,000, can pull that bottle and have a story to tell.
Correct.
And that's such an important part of who we are as a society, as like a species, right? Where we are literally built to connect with each other.
Yeah.
And what a fun way to do it.
Yeah, what a fun way to do it. Come in and like over like food and thinking about pairing. So earlier this year, I opened a bottle also from the year I was born, 1994, the Jean-Luc Colombo Cornas, one of my favorite producers.
And that's from?
The Northern Rhone.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. It's almost like I mentioned Northern Rhone and Syrah. This should not be shocking to anyone. But what's really cool about that is nobody in my family drinks. So like them getting vintage wine for me for my birthday wasn't even a thought in their mind.
Right.
But I stumbled upon it, and then immediate buyer's regret not buying like the 2 bottles that they had available of this. They weren't expensive, like in terms of aged wine.
Yeah.
They weren't expensive at all. But then my mom, who doesn't drink, went and bought them for me and brought them for my 30th birthday. And then
shout out Kelly.
Yeah, shout out Kelly. We love you. Hope you're recovering well from your hand surgery. And then opened it, and on my 30th birthday, like my proper 30th birthday, and it was such a beautiful bottle of wine.
Sure.
And it was so cool to like sit down and share it with some people who like were able to truly like appreciate that bottle in that moment in time.
Sure.
My mom was not here for the time of my birthday. She probably would have tried it, would have been like, oh, this is really cool, like hearing the story.
Yeah.
Maybe had like 2 sips and wouldn't have finished it, mainly because she just doesn't like drinking.
Yeah.
But she was able to share my love and my joy of this wine, and then went and bought it for me because she like knew how cool that wine was and how cool that wine could be as an addition to my story in wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Love that. Love birthday bottles.
Love
Those are
birthday
fun.
bottles.
Yeah, I am so excited that we get to talk about this wine, and this is a wine for, most collectors want Burgundies, and there's a reason. They are beautiful. My particular Burgundy of choice is a Premier Cru Chablis. I'm a white Burgundy fan, but this is insane. So, we rate every bottle that we drink on our podcast, and so let's talk about why this is a 5-star wine.
Yeah.
Let's just not bury the lead.
We decided to come out swinging. One, is it a well-made wine?
Absolutely not. Horrible.
No, horrible. This is
horrible
the worst
production.
wine I've ever tried
Clearly
in my life.
Clearly produced by machines and robots.
Yeah. Somebody who doesn't have any interest or care for what they're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
No. In all reality, exceptionally produced.
This is an exceptionally produced
Well, they have
wine.
to. It's Burgundy.
Yeah, they have to. It's Burgundy.
The most controlled wine region in the world.
Well, there aren't necessarily, not every single Burgundy is great. But we can talk about why this is a truly exceptional wine.
That's a different episode.
That is. We can talk about what makes this truly exceptional in the fact that everything about this wine is balanced. The acid, the tannins, and the flavors here.
Yes.
Not one thing sticks out.
No.
Typically when I am tasting and evaluating wine, especially with looking for the wine that is ageable and cellarable, something is going to be a little bit off about it in terms of its structure as to where it's currently at. Either it's going to be super tannic, going to be incredibly high in acid, and something is just going to be off balance about it slightly.
Yeah.
This wine, however, is so beautifully intricate. It's come together so beautifully. It's just balanced. It's like drinking velvet.
Yes.
I
would agree. And what's great about this wine is, this is pretty young for a Burgundy, and it's already expressing beautifully.
Yeah.
It's a little grippy on the palate.
Yep.
No doubt about that.
Yep.
Because you could age this wine for 20 more years if you wanted to.
Yep.
Or longer.
Yeah.
Even with those tannins, to your point, everything else meets it.
Yeah.
The rest of the profile of the wine meets the tannins where they are. It is simply perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. 100 points.
100 points.
No, but
definitely a star, though.
Definitely the star.
I just kind of mentioned this, but ageability.
Yeah. This is such an ageable wine.
Burgundies are made to age.
Yes. Especially once we're up here, in the Grand Cru.
Yes.
These are wines intentionally made to age. They've got the structure to go the length. Even though Pinot Noirs are light to medium-bodied wines, these are made with the intention to age, and you get that here because we were just talking about the tannins, which tannins are an antioxidant, and when we are aging a wine, the thing we are combating is oxygen, time, and age.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think for people who have, there are definitely a good share of Pinot Noir haters.
Yes. Yes.
Out there, and I think for some Pinot Noir haters, it tastes like a watered down red.
Yes.
Pinot Noir is a light, sometimes medium-bodied red grape.
Yep.
This wine is displaying a body that is so interesting for a Pinot Noir, but not interesting. It is appropriate for a Grand Cru Pinot Noir from Burgundy, but it doesn't necessarily happen in other Pinot Noirs, right?
Even from Burgundy.
Even from Burgundy.
Yeah.
This has the body it needs to go the distance.
Yes. And then
Worth the price.
We'll come back to worth the price. We'll talk about that one last.
That's the last one. Cellarability.
Well,
we just did ageability.
Yeah, ageability, notability.
Well,
yes. This is a Grand Cru.
It's notable.
This is a Grand Cru Burgundy.
All you need
so
to know.
also then talking about rarity.
Right.
Yes. Even though this is the largest Clos, the largest Grand Cru Clos in Burgundy, you're not going to find them. You're just not going to find them. And also, this is en Gros. This is coming from her specific vineyard site in there. This is a really, really cool bottle of which there's not a lot made.
Right.
So then worth the price point. This is always the fun question, I think, with Burgundy.
Yeah.
Especially with Grand Cru Burgundies. Because Grand Cru Burgundies are incredibly well-made wines. They have to be.
Yeah. There are Grand Cru Burgundies that go for $20,000 retail plus a bottle.
Yeah,
period.
Conti.
The Domaine Romanée-Conti, yes.
Yeah.
This obviously is not $20,000.
No.
So
we don't
this
have that
is
money.
retailing for.
This is $300. This is a $300 bottle of wine, which on the whole is a very, very good price point for a Grand Cru Burgundy. And it's for that reason that I will say I think it is worth the price.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more that I think goes into a wine being worth the price beyond it just being a well-made wine, which is that this wine in particular has a pedigree. This wine has a huge pedigree. And so part of what's going into the price is the pedigree. Sometimes people overcharge for the pedigree.
Or they rely upon it.
Yeah, or they rely upon
and
it
I think
far
that
too much.
somewhere that's happening all too much is Napa.
Yes.
And we'll get into that. We can talk about Napa at a different time. But yeah, they're relying on they are slapping Napa Valley as big as they can on that label and praying that people buy it for $65.
Yes.
And they do.
Yes, and they do.
This not only has a pedigree that makes Napa look young.
Yeah.
This wine does not rest on its laurels.
No.
This wine meets its pedigree.
Yes.
Contributes to it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, completely. So, yeah.
So you would say it's worth it?
I would say it's worth it.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I think there's some, like I said, the Burgundy is always the question for me is if it's worth the price point.
Yeah. And I think, I think the reason I give it that star is because it is, for what it is, it's a great value.
Yeah. Yes.
So for me, it is worth it. If you want to experience a Grand Cru red Burgundy, this is a great bottle of wine for you to buy and collect.
It's a great entry level.
It absolutely is. And then if you buy it and you love every minute of it and you say, all right, I'm in, you can go as big as you want.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So. Well, Anna, this has been a really fun conversation, but I think it's time for us to really study this en gros.
Examine it. Give all
and
the
I
notes.
think we need to take a deep dive. So,
I think so too.
friends, until next time.
Until next time.
Cheers.